Chapter 13. My release from Borstal. I was released from Borstal a year after, and it was during this time I began to get into all kinds of things and criminal activities in Aylesbury. I bought my first car for £100. It was a Gold Mini 850cc. About 6 weeks before I was released from Borstal, I was given home leave, and the first thing I did was to meet up with some of the former friends we knew, both Michael and I. David King, Brian Collier, both of them took me out for the week, and we went to Berkhamsted to a dance during that week. It was there we saw Long John Baldry, who had a hit record at that time, Let Your Heartaches Begin. The trouble was, he tried to sing it at the dance without his orchestra, just a tape recorder backing track. It was not very good at all. When I'd been released from Borstal, I felt very cocky and was not prepared to take any nonsense from anyone. On my first visit to the Queen's Head, lo and behold, Alan Dobb was there, and he was there with his girlfriend, Liz Brown, who had taken me to court over the illegitimate child. We greeted each other, and he realised, from the way I spoke, I'd just been released from Borstal, because every other sentence of mine was peppered with, "You know what I mean?" or "Do you know what I mean?" When we went to the toilet, he came out and referred to the incident of the paternity suite and said he ought to hit me for it. But let's just keep things as they were, as he was now in a relationship with Liz Brown. It was at this time I went to the Crombie shop, just off the Kingswood Square, and had a mohair suit made to measure. But to my disappointment it never fitted properly, despite many tries by the manager to have it altered to fit me. When Michael came out of prison, he decided we should go and visit this shop and deal with the manager, Terry. I'll talk about this later. When I was sentenced to Borstal, I was assessed in terms of my intellectual abilities, so that I would be sent to the most suitable Borstal. I wanted to train as a television engineer, but the education department deemed me not intelligent enough, as I was very poor at maths and English. My written skills were virtually illiterate. So they sent me to a Borstal to do electrical installations, which was a craft course not really needing too much intellectual abilities. On this note, I talk from experience, and now my qualifications, that dyslexic people are very astute and can understand electronics, so don't be put off by those who think otherwise. I understood electronics, how circuits worked, even though I could not read or write properly. It was due to my mother's insistence and tenacity that she managed to get me on the course at Enfield, even though it was 3 months already too late. They thought I was not clever enough. I was very pleased that I proved her right and came top of the group in everything I did in terms of practical work and the City and Guilds examination. It also confirmed my belief that the government officials sucked. The first project I built on the course was a 4-valve superhet medium-wave radio receiver. This worked great, and everyone in the group were impressed by my work. On this course, I met a West Indian student in his 30s. He was a Seventh-day Adventist, and he believed it was wrong to eat pork. He argued that we must keep the law of Moses in terms of eating certain foods, and the seventh-day Sabbath was a Saturday. He put to me an argument that although fruits are fruits, and a banana is not an orange, nor an apple a banana, but they're all fruits, so although days of the week are all the same kind, as they are all days, only one is the Sabbath. I understood his argument and agreed with him, and at that weekend in Aylesbury I would put this matter to Mrs. Knight, who was a Christian, who worshipped on a Sunday, the first day of the week. She was unable to answer the argument. It didn't matter to me, as I didn't care about such things, but I felt my student colleague was more right in his approach and more reasonable. I learned later that the Old Testament Sabbath was only a shadow of the rest that we have in Christ. Every day to the Christian is the Sabbath. I decided then to visit my brother, who was now in Maidstone prison, and I did this when I could. Whilst he was there, he met another inmate, a senior man from Cyprus, who told him some fantastic story which we both believed, and we had ideas of being involved in gold smuggling. Michael was fed up with prison and wanted to escape, so this opportunity to leave the country and smuggle gold was his opportunity. Michael was due out on home leave, and instead of going back to prison voluntarily, he absconded. The Cypriot was offering us the opportunity to make money by smuggling gold. The idea was that we were to pair up with a Cyprus girl and pretend to be newlywed, then return to the UK on honeymoon. We would both be carrying gold strapped to our bodies. There were no metal detectors in those days or scanners, as at the airports are these days. We would have a suitable partner and we would carry the gold strapped under our clothes, making out we were newlyweds. This would reduce the chance of being stopped by customs and so get the gold through. We were prepared to take this risk. It sounded exciting, and that was what we wanted to do. The plan was that when my brother came out on home leave, we would go to Greece. We had a contact in London, all set up by the Greek man, and to take it from there. We were all hyped up, but there was no such person or arrangements, and we felt really let down. The gold smuggling came to nothing, so Michael was on the run from the law for a year. However, Michael decided he could not face going back to prison, so he just didn't return. He changed his name to Kenny Tyndale, and managed to stay away from the police for a whole year before being picked up whilst working on a building site in Aylesbury. Michael's new identity enabled him to live and work and take up normal life in Aylesbury. And he did, and by now he had a steady girlfriend, which really helped to keep him on the straight and narrow. However, one night, whilst he was in the Crown pub in Aylesbury with his girlfriend, Paddy Dunn, the local CID, suspected he had identified the escaped convict. To verify his suspicion, he called out, "Hey Mick! Michael!" But Michael realised what was happening, ignored the salutation. Paddy then walked up to Michael and said, "Hi Michael." Michael simply turned round and said, "No, I'm David. I'm not my brother." This worked, and Michael continued his life of freedom for a whole 14 months, living, working and keeping out of trouble with the police. You see, a girlfriend did the trick. At this time, I was doing a government training course at Enfield, and Michael got some work with a shop fitting company and worked in London. He decided he would live above the shop, which was in King's Cross, where they worked, and so I was able to visit him during the week. For a bit of fun, one morning we decided to go to the cafe down the road dressed in our pyjamas and a dressing gown. Bringing with us our own cornflakes, we went into the shop and asked for breakfast bowls and milk and sugar. This seemed a funny thing to do, and all went down well. Michael soon got fed up of being there on his own, so we decided he was leaving. So one night we stole the company's tools and equipment and returned to Aylesbury, where our parents lived. During this time, I renewed friendship with Pat Jones, and we did many things together. My brother had a girlfriend now, and I was seeking to have a good time. On one occasion, I showed Pat Jones the powerful effects of chloroform and knocked him out, so he was unconscious. Now, moved with my strange sense of humour, I cut several chunks of hair out of his head, and when he came to, he had no idea what I'd done. I found it great fun when I took him home and saw his mother's face. Of course, he had no idea what she was upset about. I just left and got out of the way, laughing to myself. It was after this that Pat Jones got his first skinhead haircut in Aylesbury. No one would normally cut all their hair off. It just was not fashionable. He did it, and I was proud of him. I'm sure he set the trend of the skinhead fashion in Aylesbury. One bank holiday weekend in 1969, when I was working at Radio Rentals in Hemel Hempstead, Pat Jones and I decided to go to Yarmouth and meet with the Aylesbury mods and other skinheads. I took the Ferns van, in which we would sleep the night. On this occasion, this particular weekend, I was sleeping in the back of the Ford van on a Sunday afternoon, and Pat Jones was out with some of the lads, and they had a run-in with a crowd of greasers. Greasers were motorbike boys who would fight with knives and bicycle chains. It was very similar to the mods and rockers you see in the Who film Quadrophenia. They were the sworn enemies of the skinheads. This company of greasers had come across Pat Jones and his crowd, and when they were on the seafront at Yarmouth, and they were combing the area for skinheads to pick a fight with. There were too many of them, and Pat Jones and the other crowd was on the run, and I was happily asleep in the back of the van, quite safe. Or would have been, had it not been for Pat Jones running up to the van shouting and screaming, "Get out, come and run, or do something." He ran off, just having called attention to the greasers that I was there in the van. As I looked up and came to and looked out the van window, I could see a crowd of greasers grinning and running towards the van. They knew they now had a victim in the van. I was concerned it was the firm's van, so I had to get away. There wasn't much I could do, so I locked the doors quickly and jumped in the driver's seat, hoping to drive. Unfortunately, I was awkwardly parked. As I tried to start the engine, a great whack came on the roof of the van. The van was hit with a number of times with bicycle chains, and I heard shouts of glee. Then they began to rock the van, seeking to turn it over. They lifted it and rocked it as I tried to drive away. I must have hit one or two as I managed to get away in time from a beating. That was all thanks to Pat Jones. This, however, was all part of the fun, getting into scrapes of one kind or another.